I was lying on the cold tile floor, blood in my throat, my fingers barely holding the phone. And when I finally reached my daughter, she told me she was in the middle of a spa facial, said she'd come after her massage, then hung up. My name is Varela. I raised her by myself. I once worked 3 jobs just to buy her prom shoes. Now she couldn't even press pause. While I was gasping for air. Have you ever felt invisible to someone you loved most? What would you do if your child chose luxury over your life? Comment below, I want to hear your truth, too. She used to fall asleep on my chest, back when the house still echoed with lullabies and the smell of lavender baby lotion. Back when I didn't mind being woken up 10 times a night just to know she was breathing. There was a time she wouldn't take a step unless she knew I was watching. First dance recital, kindergarten play, high school speech team, I was always there. Rain or flu budget or burnout, I showed up. The walls of this house still remember her laughter. Sticky notes on the fridge, glitter glue on the couch, a crayon drawing still taped behind the pantry door. She wrote, "Mommy, you are the magic." I kept it. She doesn't remember that now, doesn't ask, doesn't visit. After college, things changed. At first it was subtle, canceled brunches, delayed texts. Then came excuses wrapped in love. Mama, I just need some time to find myself. Or don't take it personally, I'm building my career. She became polished. Smooth hair, perfect teeth, sculpted brows. A walking skincare campaign. Her voice on live streams is soft, breathy, effortless. But when she speaks to me, it's clipped, tight, as if I'm background noise. I started pretending I didn't notice. Pretending the Christmas cards weren't late. Pretending the birthday gifts she forgot last year didn't make me cry quietly in the laundry room. I told myself this is what motherhood is. Letting go, cheering from afar, smiling even when your seat gets moved to the back row. But what no one tells you is how heavy silence becomes when it's constant, how absence takes up space, how you can miss someone who's still alive, just not available. The last time she came over, she looked around my living room like it was a relic. Her eyes paused on the curtains. "Oh, Mom, you still have these like they were mold." I smiled. She didn't. I had made her favorite soup. She took one bite, said it tasted too earthy, then posted a photo of a kale bowl later that day with the caption, "Nourish yourself, choose better." I should have known then. Should have known when she started calling my full name in texts. Not Mom, not even Ma, but Varela. Professional, cold, convenient. I used to pick up her calls before the first ring ended. Now I hesitate. Not because I'm angry, but because I don't know which version of her I'll get. The little girl who clung to my hand in the grocery store, or the woman who forgets to ask how I am. Even when I'm wheezing, this house raised her. It sheltered her heartbreaks, her milestones, her tantrums, her triumphs. Now it holds a woman who keeps soup warm just in case. She remembers to come home. And when she didn't again, I placed the untouched bowl in the fridge, sat by the window, and waited for a daughter who was already somewhere else. She stopped calling on Sundays. That was the first thing I noticed. For 20 years, Sunday was ours. A pot of tea, an hour-long call, the sound of her voice drifting through the kitchen like sunlight. Then came the texts. "Busy today, Mama. Can we catch up Tuesday?" But Tuesday became Friday, then nothing. She posted stories instead. Face glowing, background blurred, captioned, "Reclaim your peace." I watched them in silence, trying to understand where I had gone wrong. The last time I called, she answered on speaker. Voices laughed behind her. Someone said, "Is that your mom again?" She laughed too, and said nothing to correct them. I pretended I didn't hear it. Pretended the sting in my throat was just dryness, but it lingered. I sent her a scarf I knit last winter, sage green, her favorite when she was 10. She never replied. A week later, I saw a photo of her online, wearing a cashmere shawl tagged and sponsored. The scarf was never mentioned. She didn't come for Thanksgiving, said she had a client's retreat. She posted a boomerang of wine glasses clinking over a pool. Meanwhile, I ate a lone cranberry sauce still shaped like the can. I tried to bring it up. Once, said softly, "I miss having you here, sweetheart." She exhaled long and low. "Mama, please don't guilt trip me. You always make things feel heavy." I stood there holding her favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle, the one she painted in 5th grade. My mouth moved, but no words came. She stopped saying "I love you" at the end of calls. Just, "Okay, bye, quick," dismissive. I started writing in a notebook. Moments I noticed, moments that hurt. Not to confront her, just so I wouldn't gaslight myself. There between folded pages I wrote, "Well, she calls less, stays shorter, smiles tighter. And when I speak, she looks at her phone. But the worst moment came quietly. No fight, no big betrayal, just a message. Can we skip this weekend? I need space. I stared at the screen. What does a mother do with that? Give it and hope she finds her way back. Or wonder if space was never temporary, if space was just another word for goodbye. She texted that morning, heading to Brindlemoor Spa, finally giving my body the reset it deserves. I saw it while stirring soup on the stove, the same kind she loved when she was 7, chicken broth extra time, soft carrots. She used to call it gold soup, said it made her feel safe. That morning I felt off. Not tired heavy, like my lungs were carrying something wet. Still I set the table, poured her favorite sparkling water, warmed the rolls, then called. She answered with a giggle. Mama, I'm wrapped in eucalyptus towels. Can I call you after my steam? I hesitated. My chest feels strange. She hushed her voice. Mom, let's not do this now. This is a wellness space. Then laughed again, at someone else's joke. Not mine. I didn't argue, didn't cry, just whispered I made the soup. She paused, then said, You're sweet, I'll swing by after, maybe around 5. The call ended. I sat on the edge of the couch bowl in my lap. It trembled. So did I. By 3, the pain sharpened like a rock behind my ribs. I stood. The bowl slipped from my hands. It shattered. Gold liquid spreading across old tile. I fell with it. My side slammed the ground first, then my shoulder, then silence. The kind of silence that has a pulse. I tried to move. One arm obeyed, the other twitched. I saw my phone inches away. I crawled. My breath stung, my throat burned. And when I finally pressed her name, I knew she wouldn't answer the way I needed her to. She picked up. Hey, Mama, I'm at the juice bar. What's up? I wheezed. Elowen, something's wrong. A pause, longer than it should have been. Then, can I call you in a bit? I just ordered a ginger shot. I coughed. Blood hit the floor. Elowen, please, I need... She sighed. Mama, call 911. That's what they're for. And just like that, she hung up. Not even, where are you? Not do you want me there? Just that clinical click. I stared at the screen, still glowing, still blank, still holding the name of someone who no longer saw me as an emergency. The paramedics came. I don't remember calling them. Maybe I redialed. Maybe the phone slipped and fate pressed for me. I remember cold hands lifting my arms, plastic on skin, a voice asking, Ma'am, can you hear me? I blinked. Then the world blurred. Ambulance lights pulsed like a silent alarm. My ears buzzed. Not from sirens, but from the sentence still echoing in my head. Call 911. That's what they're for. She didn't ask where I was, didn't even say hang in there. She chose to not know. I arrived under fluorescent lights. Nurses swarmed swift and steady. IV needle pierced my arm. Monitors beeped beside my ear. I was asked my birthday. I whispered it. Someone asked about allergies, medications, emergency contact. I paused, then said none. It tasted like truth, sharp, metallic, real. I wanted to believe she'd walk through those hospital doors. Hair perfect, lips glossed, with some excuse, any excuse. She didn't. The nurse pressed a cool cloth to my forehead. Her voice was gentle. Is someone coming? I shook my head. She hesitated, then touched my hand. I flinched, not because it hurt, but because even kindness felt foreign now. Sharp like a reminder of what I didn't get. From the one who should have. She left the room quietly. I stared at the ceiling tiles. Each square looked the same. Perfect. Unbothered. Unlike me, I used to be strong. Worked double shifts. Carried boxes up attic stairs. Walked 3 miles for groceries when the car died. But that night I couldn't even sit up. Couldn't even call my daughter without being told later. Machines beeped in rhythm with a truth I had denied too long. She didn't forget. She chose. And when I turned my head toward the visitor's chair, it was empty, not just for that moment, but for all the moments she had slowly backed away. I closed my eyes, not to sleep, just to stop seeing what was no longer coming. The doctor came in with a clipboard and a tired smile. You had a gastrointestinal bleed, likely stress-induced. We caught it early, he spoke gently, like someone trained to soften truths. You'll need rest, hydration, and less pressure on your system. He didn't know the pressure lived in my phone, in her voice, in what she didn't say. I nodded, because what else could I do? After he left, the nurse brought a tray gelatin crackers mint tea. The tea tasted like absence, faint, unwanted, barely there. The clock ticked, shifts changed. Outside the sun faded behind the blinds, still no word from her. Until 6:47 p.m., my phone buzzed once. Elowen, glad you're okay. Spa went long, needed this recharge so badly. Talk soon. No question mark after okay. No apology. Just her wellness, her schedule, her peace. I didn't reply. Instead, I reached for the drawer beside the bed. Took out the pen they'd left for paperwork. Found the back of a patient info sheet. And wrote, call the lawyer. 3 words, clean, controlled, final. The second line came faster. And remove her from the will. I stared at the ink. It didn't shake, not like my hands had. For 35 years, I said yes. Yes to extra babysitting. Yes to helping with rent. Yes to the bridal shower that no one thanked me for. Yes to covering her emergency dental work. Yes to watching her dog for a week that became 3. But now, I said no, with silence, with paper, with ink. The nurse peeked in. Her shift was ending. She asked, need anything before I go? I looked at her face creased by care, not concealer. She reminded me of someone I used to be. I smiled faintly. No, thank you. I have everything I need now. She nodded, closed the door softly. I was alone again, but this time, it didn't sting. It felt clean, the kind of quiet that comes not from being left, but from finally letting go. The cab pulled into the driveway just after noon. The sky in Brindlemoor hung low gray, silent, cold, like it knew. The driver helped me up the steps. I smiled, thanked him, and lied. I'll be fine from here. The door creaked open. The air inside smelled of dried soup and forgotten heat. I didn't bother turning on the lights. Not yet. In the kitchen, the bowl still lay in fragments. The soup had dried into a dark, sticky halo on the tile. I stood there for a long time, not shocked, not even sad, just still. That was the moment. Not the hospital, not the phone call, not the silence. That bowl shattered, uncleaned, unacknowledged. That's what I had become in her eyes, a thing she'd used and stepped over. I knelt slower than I used to, picked up each piece, placed them into a paper bag, then into the trash. I washed my hands, dried them on the towel she once embroidered. Best mom. Thread faded, edges frayed. I folded it neatly, put it away, then walked to the door, locked it, opened the drawer by the front entrance, took out the spare key Elowen still used. I held it cold in my palm, then slid it into a plastic envelope, labeled it, and returned to sender. I left it by the mailbox, and for the first time in my life, I no longer waited for the sound of her knock. If she came, it wouldn't be through this door. Not anymore. I didn't move fast, but I moved with intention. The list I'd started in the hospital sat beside my tea. I had written it in pencil. Now I pressed harder. Each word dug into the page like a wound finally naming itself. Call lawyer, done. Remove her from will, done. Next, cancel joint access to bank accounts. I opened my laptop. My fingers trembled only slightly, less from fear, more from resolve. I logged in, navigated through tabs. Her name still appeared beside mine on 2 savings accounts. Emergency fund, college rollover she never used. I hovered over her name. Click, remove, confirm. Gone. I called the bank next. Asked for 2 new security questions. Only me, I said. They hesitated. I didn't. Next, change the locks. I dialed the local locksmith. A man named Carson arrived that afternoon. Big hand, soft voice. Didn't ask questions. This old one's stubborn, he said, tugging the deadbolt. So am I replied. He chuckled. Replaced it in 15 minutes. When he asked for the old keys, I handed him a small bowl. Inside 2 labeled sets. One for Elowen, one for her ex-husband who hadn't returned them after the divorce. Should I toss them? No, I said. I'll handle it. He left. I sat at the kitchen table, placed the keys in a zip bag, wrote a sticky note, no longer yours. Sealed the envelope, walked it out to the mailbox, let the wind carry it. Next, contact my doctor. The front desk nurse recognized my voice. I'd like to change my emergency contact, I said. She hesitated. Elowen's still listed as... No, I interrupted. Please remove her. Another pause. Do you want to name someone else? I took a breath. Yes, myself. Silence, then understood. That night I opened the guest room closet. The one I kept clean in case she ever stayed. Fresh sheets, an extra robe, her favorite slippers. I pulled everything out, folded it, boxed it. Inside I found a bag of baby clothes. Elowen had said keep them just in case, but there was no case now. I labeled the box, donate. The next day I walked it to the church thrift store. The volunteer took it with a smile. These are lovely, she said. They were for a future that never came, I replied. She didn't ask more. At home I cleaned the room, opened the window, let the cold air sting my cheeks. It felt earned. I placed a chair in the corner, a lamp, a small table. Then for the first time in years, I set up my typewriter. I used to write poems, stopped after she left for college. Now I wrote again, not for her, for me. I wrote about the silence in hospitals, about the sound of blood dripping on tile, about eucalyptus oil and lies that smell like citrus, about voices that smile when they say next time. I didn't cry as I typed, only paused sometimes when my throat ached. But not from grief, from relief. Midweek she texted, "Aloan, Mom, are you okay? Haven't heard from you. Should I stop by this weekend?" I stared at the message, the gall. No mention of the hospital. No, I'm sorry. Just the performance of concern. I didn't reply. Friday a knock came. I watched from behind the curtain. There she stood, hair perfect, flowers in hand. White lilies, my favorite years ago. Now they smelled like pity. I opened the door a crack. "Mama," she beamed. "I brought your favorite. Can we talk?" I didn't open wider. "I'm not taking visitors today," I said. She blinked. "What, Mom? I came all the way here. I didn't ask you to." She laughed forced. "You're being dramatic again." I let the word hang, just like she'd let me hang on the floor. "No," I said. "I'm being clear." She stepped back. "So that's it? You're shutting me out?" I met her gaze. "Until I believe I matter more than your schedule, yes." She stared at me like I'd spoken a language she never bothered to learn. Because she hadn't. She mumbled something about misunderstandings about how I'd exaggerated. I closed the door. Slow, deliberate. No slam, no shout, just wood and finality. Later that evening she texted, "Elowen, Katie says you're overreacting. I do care. You just need to let me in again." I didn't answer, because letting her in had cost me too much. Now I was the one drawing the line, and this time it wouldn't fade. By the next morning, the messages came in waves. First, Elowen again. "You're being unfair." It was one moment, Mom. Don't punish me for it. We were just sitting down at the spa. I didn't know how bad it was. Then her friends, her godmother, even an old coworker I barely remembered. They came through email, voicemail, texts, each more urgent than the last, each one missing the only words I ever needed to hear. "I'm sorry I didn't come. I'm sorry I listened to one voicemail. Katie, her friend from the studio. "You've humiliated Elowen. She's been anxious for days. You could have just told her what you needed, not iced her out. She said you're acting unstable. She's trying to be a good daughter. Good daughters don't hang up on mothers who can't stand. They don't send flowers instead of showing up. They don't post yoga reels while their mother lies under a hospital monitor." But none of them said that. Elowen sent another message that night. "If you don't stop this, I don't know how we come back from it." This. Not the hurt, not the silence, not my absence. Just this, as if I had created the problem. 3 days later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. Typed, "Cold." From her. "And your actions have created confusion in the family. It's important we teach children forgiveness and compassion. We hope you'll reflect and reconsider your behavior." No signature, no handwriting, not one word asking how I felt, not one sentence acknowledging that I had bled alone on a bathroom floor. It read like a press release, polished, hollow. That afternoon I blocked her number. I didn't cry, I didn't tremble. I just made soup again, for myself. Chamomile simmered on the stove. Steam rose into the quiet kitchen. It tasted like stillness, not peace, but the beginning of it. She tried one more time. Knocked, called my name, left a voice message. "Mama, I know you're in there. Don't do this. You're overreacting. We're family." I didn't move from the chair, because family isn't a word you use to erase abandonment. She left again, and this time I didn't wait at the window. The next morning I walked down to the post office, handed a padded envelope to the clerk. Inside every card she'd ever sent without signing, every invoice I'd paid. A note, "These belong to you. I won't hold them anymore." The clerk weighed it, stamped, shipped. As I walked back, the sun rose over Brindlemoor, like it had done every day, even the ones she missed. Even the ones I spent alone. I passed Mrs. Claridge watering her plants. She looked up surprised. "You're out early," she smiled. I nodded. "Feels good." She touched my arm. "You look lighter." I didn't know how to respond, so I smiled. Later that evening, I received a final message from Elowen. "I don't know who you are anymore." I stared at it for a while, then whispered, "And that makes 2 of us." Then I did something I never used to do. I turned off my phone before bed, lit a candle, sat by the window, and for the first time, the silence in the house didn't feel like punishment. It felt like protection. A week passed. The air in Brindlemoor turned crisp. Leaves curled on the porch like old pages ready to be swept. I woke early that Sunday. The house still creaked in all the usual places, but something had shifted. Not in the walls, in me. I brewed tea. Set out 1 cup, not 2. There was no ghost to serve anymore. In the guest room, once full of maybes and what ifs, the air was light. No folded towels, no backup plan, just a chair, a journal, and a potted violet reaching for morning light. I didn't check my phone. There was nothing new worth seeing. Instead, I opened the window, let October in. Downstairs, I sorted a few old photos. Elowen in a pumpkin costume. Elowen on a bicycle with streamers. Me always somewhere behind her, holding steadying, smiling. I didn't throw them out, but I didn't leave them on the shelves either. They went into a box labeled, "When I'm ready." Some things don't need closure, just distance. At noon, I walked to the market, bought fresh herbs, spoke to a woman named Alice who just moved into the neighborhood. She was my age. She asked if I wanted to join a book club. I said yes. That night, I lit a candle and wrote in my journal. I wasn't erased. I was just giving too much to someone who had stopped seeing me as a person. The truth wasn't bitter. It was clarifying. I didn't need revenge. I didn't want guilt. All I needed was the space to stop begging for scraps from someone I raised on feasts. I don't know if Elowen will write again. If she does, I'll read it, but I won't rearrange my heart for it. Some daughters grow away, others grow sharper. Mine just grew elsewhere. But me, I grew back into myself. And now when I sit in this house with its familiar creaks and quiet corners, I don't feel left behind. I feel returned. Returned to the woman who once stood tall, carried others, and now finally carries herself. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you spent your whole life walking toward? Would you have let her back in? Drop your thoughts below, because sometimes the real story begins after the door stays closed.